The modern world moves at an unprecedented pace, driven by an invisible network of signals, notifications, and screens that have gradually reshaped the very fabric of human interaction. Walking down any city street, sitting in any suburban cafe, or observing the quiet halls of contemporary homes reveals a striking commonality that crosses generations, yet impacts none more profoundly than the young. Children who once navigated the world through tactile experiences, scraped knees, and spontaneous outdoor games are now growing up in a digital ecosystem where reality is often mediated through a glass pane. This shift has occurred so rapidly that society has barely had time to process its long-term psychological and social implications, leaving parents worldwide to navigate an entirely uncharted territory. The ambient hum of smartphones and tablets has become the background track of childhood, replacing the chaotic noise of traditional play with the quiet, focused staring of digital consumption. It is a silent revolution that has fundamentally altered how friendships are formed, how memories are constructed, and how young minds learn to process boredom and solitude. In this environment, the home is no longer a sanctuary from the outside world. Instead, the outside world, with all its demands for attention and social validation, pours directly into the private spaces of family life through every available screen. As this digital wave continues to swell, a quiet but determined counter-movement is beginning to take shape within the walls of everyday households. Parents from all walks of life are starting to question the inevitability of this hyper-connected lifestyle, wondering what is lost when every moment of potential boredom is immediately filled by an algorithm. The struggle is not merely about managing screen time or setting daily limits. It is a deeper, more fundamental philosophical debate about the nature of childhood itself and what it means to grow up in an age of constant distraction. It requires immense courage to stand against the cultural tide, especially when compliance is the easiest path and resistance often brings immediate friction from the very people parents are trying to protect. If you find these deep dives into modern social shifts and family dynamics compelling, please take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an update on the stories shaping our cultural landscape. The pressure to conform to the digital standard is felt intensely by children who view their devices not just as tools, but as essential portals to social survival and peer acceptance. To separate a child from their digital tether, even temporarily, is often viewed by the youth as a form of social exile, making the enforcement of boundaries an exhausting battle of wills for caregivers. This invisible battle is happening in millions of households every day, but it takes on a particularly fascinating dimension when it unfolds under the intense glare of the global spotlight. When individuals who are accustomed to influencing global culture on a massive scale turn their attention inward to regulate their own domestic environments, the results offer a compelling mirror to society at large. The contrast between a public life defined by media saturation and a private life dedicated to digital minimalism creates a powerful narrative tension that forces us to re-examine our own choices. It raises the question of whether the elite, who have a front-row seat to the mechanisms of modern entertainment and media creation, see something inherently hazardous in the very systems they help maintain. This brings us to a specific household that has recently captured public attention, not for a glamorous red carpet appearance or a high-stakes business venture, but for a simple domestic decree regarding weekend sleepovers. It is a story that begins not with a grand public announcement, but with a quiet realization that something vital was slipping away from the experience of growing up in a modern, high-profile family. The home in question is one where resources are vast and options are limitless, yet the chosen path was one of deliberate restraint and traditional simplicity. At the heart of this unfolding dynamic is a mother who found herself standing at a crossroad that every modern parent eventually faces, weighing the comfort of peace and popularity against the difficult responsibility of establishing firm boundaries. She looked at the upcoming gathering of her 12-year-old son and his circle of close friends and made a conscious decision that she knew would instantly disrupt the expectations of the digital generation. The decision was to implement a strict, uncompromising rule that would banish all personal devices from the communal and private spaces where the children were meant to interact during their stay. She knew that this decree would not be met with enthusiasm, and that she was willfully stepping into the role of the antagonist in the eyes of a group of preteens who view their smartphones as literal extensions of their personas. The anticipation of the social friction this rule would cause within her son's peer group was heavy, yet her conviction about the long-term benefits of real-world connection remained unshaken. This domestic boundary was not born out of a sudden burst of authoritarian anger or an old-fashioned animosity toward technological progress, but rather from a deeply held belief that children need dedicated spaces to simply exist without the pressure of an online presence. By removing the digital screens, she was effectively attempting to slow down time, to strip away the hyperstimulation of the internet, and to see what kind of authentic human chemistry would emerge from the resulting vacuum. The stage was thus set for a fascinating social experiment within the walls of a celebrity household, serving as a microcosm for a debate that is currently raging across the globe. As the weekend approached and the young guests prepared to arrive with their devices in hand, the tension between modern convenience and traditional childhood values was about to play out in real time, setting a precedent that would soon ripple far beyond their private doorstep and spark a massive conversation among millions of parents who are desperate for a change. The quiet revolution inside this high-profile home took concrete shape when Lauren Silverman, the 48-year-old longtime partner of entertainment mogul Simon Cowell, decided to share her domestic policy with the world through a series of candid social media slides. This unexpected revelation instantly pulled back the curtain on the private life of their 12-year-old son, Eric, and offered a rare glimpse into how one of the world's most influential media families handles the universal challenge of parenting in the digital age. Silverman openly admitted that her decision to ban smartphones and digital devices from the bedroom during playdates and sleepovers was not met with immediate applause. In fact, she expected it to make her the single least popular mother within her son's entire friendship group. The fear of being perceived as strict or out of touch is something that plagues many modern parents. Yet Silverman chose to prioritize the emotional and social well-being of her child over temporary social validation among preteens. By establishing this firm boundary, she deliberately stepped into a zone of discomfort, knowing that the initial reaction from Eric's friends would be one of confusion and subtle resistance, as they were being asked to navigate a social situation completely detached from their usual digital safety nets. The specific rule dictated that when friends crossed the threshold of their home for a weekend stay, their personal devices were to be set aside, creating a temporary sanctuary completely free from the relentless cycle of notifications, video streams, and social media feeds. Silverman took great care to explain that this policy did not stem from an aggressive anti-technology philosophy, but rather from a profound observation of what happens to the fragile architecture of childhood when devices are allowed to dominate every waking moment. She noticed that when smartphones are present, children often sit in the same room yet remain profoundly isolated from one another, each absorbed in their own private digital universe, scrolling through algorithmic content instead of engaging with the living, breathing peers sitting right next to them. The motivation behind her unpopular rule was to deliberately disrupt this pattern of passive consumption and to see if the removal of screens would naturally force a return to a more active, creative, and connected style of play. In her public reflection, Silverman described the immediate and amazing transformation that began to unfold within her household once the phones were successfully put away, noting that the texture of the environment shifted almost instantly from a quiet, fragmented isolation to a lively, chaotic, and joyful energy. She observed that when children are stripped of their digital distractions, the hours seem to slow down in a beautiful, old-fashioned way, giving them the rare opportunity to experience the world without a sense of urgency or performance. Without the ability to retreat into a digital screen when a conversation lulls, the boys were forced to face the minor discomfort of boredom together, which almost immediately catalyzed deeper communication, spontaneous storytelling, and genuine peer-to-peer connection. Silverman vividly described a resurgence of real-world activities that many feared had been permanently lost to the current generation, capturing an environment filled with more collective laughter, richer conversations, better quality sleep, and a deeper sense of mutual understanding among the young friends. She envisioned a much larger cultural shift beginning at home, painting a picture of a restored childhood where playdates once again revolved around physical exploration and tactile creativity, such as riding bicycles through the neighborhood, swimming in the pool, playing competitive football matches in the backyard, baking treats in the kitchen, and simply hanging out to talk about their lives without an electronic intermediary. This vision was not presented as a rigid lecture to other parents, but rather as a gentle invitation to imagine what a healthier, more balanced future might look like if families collectively gathered the courage to make these tech-free boundaries the new normal for the next generation. However, the moment Silverman's thoughts were published to the wider internet, they acted as a lightning rod, instantly igniting a fierce and polarizing debate across the comments sections that beautifully mirrors the anxieties and divisions of modern society. While a large faction of parents praised her approach as brilliant and urged adults to set a better example by putting their own devices away, another equally passionate group voiced intense concern, asserting that in an unpredictable and fast-paced world, children absolutely need to be contactable by their families at all times. Silverman quickly countered this specific criticism by clarifying that her rule was rooted in balance rather than absolute control, ensuring that any child who genuinely needed to contact their home could easily access their phone, proving that her ultimate goal was simply to protect the sacred space of childhood play from the invasive pressures of the online world. This public dialogue highlighted the incredible tension that exists between the desire for safety and convenience and the desperate need to preserve the authentic, uninterrupted development of young minds. It revealed that beneath the surface of a seemingly simple house rule lies a complex, high-stakes battle over how the next generation will learn to communicate, empathize, and form lasting human bonds in a world that is increasingly designed to keep them staring at screens. To truly understand the weight of Lauren Silverman's digital boundary, one must look at the unique trajectory of the family itself and the environment in which their 12-year-old son, Eric, is being raised. This is not just any ordinary household trying to manage screen time. This is the immediate family of Simon Cowell, a global entertainment icon who has spent decades shaping the landscape of modern television, music, and pop culture. As a man who built an empire on the hyperspeed world of media, talent competition, and intense public scrutiny, Cowell knows better than anyone the sheer power of modern attention economics. For his long-term partner, Lauren Silverman, maintaining a sense of grounded normalcy within this high-profile reality has been a deliberate, lifelong journey of balance. The couple's high-profile romantic narrative began publicly back in 2013, a relationship that captured intense global media fascination from its very inception. The following year, in February of 2014, they welcomed their son Eric into the world, an event that deeply transformed Cowell's notorious public persona from a notoriously sharp-tongued critic into a deeply devoted, hands-on father. Over the years, the family dynamic has only grown tighter and more public-facing, culminating in December of 2021 when Cowell finally popped the question during a private family holiday, cementing a deep, enduring partnership that has weathered the relentless storm of international fame. In addition to Eric, Silverman brings the seasoned perspective of raising an older child, her son Adam, whom she shares with her former husband, Andrew Silverman. This multi-generational parental experience has given her a front-row seat to the rapid evolution of technology over the last 2 decades, allowing her to see firsthand exactly how the introduction of the smartphone has altered the developmental milestones of teenagers compared to the childhoods of the past. Having guided one child into adulthood and now steering another through the complex waters of pre-adolescence, Silverman possesses a rare, seasoned wisdom that informs her domestic rules. She is acutely aware that the pressures facing Eric and his peer group are vastly different from anything previous generations ever had to encounter. By deliberately enforcing a tech-free zone during social gatherings, she is trying to shield her youngest son from the constant, invisible burden of performing for a digital audience during what should be his most carefree years. The journey of Eric Cowell has been tracked by cameras since his infancy, making the sanctuary of his private home and the authenticity of his childhood friendships a matter of paramount importance to his protective mother. Silverman's insistence that culture changes at home is a powerful reminder that regardless of a family's external status, wealth, or influence, the core responsibilities of parenting remain universal. The choices made within the walls of this specific estate resonate so deeply with the public precisely because they strip away the glamour of celebrity and expose the raw, shared anxiety of raising healthy human beings in a hyper-connected era. By choosing connection over convenience, and by enduring the temporary discomfort of being labeled an unpopular mother, Silverman has laid down a foundational blueprint that challenges the passive acceptance of digital dominance. Her story demonstrates that protecting childhood is not about total isolation from the modern world or an unrealistic rejection of technological progress, but rather about creating intentional pockets of time where human relationships are allowed to breathe, grow, and deepen naturally. It underscores the profound truth that the most valuable memories are not the ones captured on a digital screen and broadcast to thousands of online followers, but the ones forged in the quiet, unscripted moments of real-world laughter, shared physical activity, and genuine face-to-face conversation. As Eric and his friends navigate the final years of their childhood, the rules established by his mother ensure that they will possess a rare and precious gift, the memory of a childhood that was truly lived in the present moment. Rich with the tactile joys of the physical world and anchored by authentic human bonds that no digital algorithm could ever replicate or replace. This domestic stand against the digital tide serves as an inspiring case study for parents everywhere, proving that with enough conviction, clarity of purpose, and love, it is entirely possible to reclaim the sacred space of childhood and guide the next generation toward a brighter, more balanced, and deeply connected future.